claimed all the credit, but there were other people, Michael Dacre Barclay, and Hugh Mendel, of course, you know, and there was other people around. So it's a bit lost in the mist of time who thought of it, but I would put the first finger right there.
I don't remember it that way.
Well, everybody has a different way.
I can't really. As Justin said, it's just a complete part. One thing we did know, we were terrified. We were working at the Northern Working Men's Schools up in England, and we were terrified of the audience. So and it was 2 half-hour spots. So we wanted 2 1.5-hour spots where we started playing without stopping, so we didn't have to talk to them, so we could get off. And I think that was where the idea of gelling all the songs together came from.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, from the stage show.
Yeah, I know. Ray's Another Morning was right in there. You know,
yeah.
It was one of the real early ones. Yeah.
Actually, also part of that stage show we did it. I think we rehearsed it all in Moocron in Belgium. But Timothy Leary, as he was called, was part of those first stage show, and so that became sort of the leading thing really when we decided to insert a lost chord, because it wasn't on Days of Future Past.
It was actually recorded during the same sessions,
same sessions,
but there wasn't a place for it on the album.
Yeah.
So it became the start of In Search of the Lost Chord.
But it's the fact that that Nights was recorded quite a long time before, but it was the first track that was recorded before. But we recorded it before for the BBC in the spring of that year. So you can see how early we were doing that stuff. It was released on November the 11th, but the BBC recording is like April. And then we listened to it, and we heard it. It was for Easy Beat, and we were driving up the motorway, and we heard it the next day on the radio, and they played it, and we pulled the van over to the side of the road and listened to it, and we convinced ourselves, mind you, I can speak for myself, I was very stoned at the time, but I could convince myself, and I think a few of us did, that we'd never be able to do it any better than that it was absolutely brilliant, there was something spooky about it, and we'd never be able to recreate it. And we got to a phone box, and Mike called the BBC, the engineer, who we knew, and he said, you know that thing that we did yesterday, we did those sessions yesterday? He said, yeah, sure. He said, did you keep a copy of that? And the guy said, no, we record over that as soon as we broadcast it. And then we were, for a few days, for me personally, for weeks, I was like, oh my God, you know, it'll never be the same. And then about 2 years ago, I was at the BBC, and a very old-time producer came up to me and said, by the way, you know that the original one that you did of Nights for the BBC? He said, here's a copy of it. And he said, because what they did when they broadcast it, they made a transcription for the BBC World Service, and it was broadcast overseas, and there it is. And
so, which is the best version?
Yeah, which is
well, that's the thing. The version that has the sound of the Moody Blues is the one that we did at Decca, because of the echoes, because of the way the three of us, myself and John and Ray's and Mike's voices hit that echo. And that's a different thing, but the song is the same, and there's a magic about the BBC version that even straight I could see that it was really good.
I was getting worried there when you said you're in a van and you heard it. I'm like, oh, please don't say they're going to say this one sucked too.
No, we thought that was great.
Well, speaking of being straight, let's talk about not being straight. I want to talk a little bit about LSD and how it... I guess my question is, if you didn't take it, would we not have some songs? I mean, do you think you couldn't create certain songs if you weren't on it, if you didn't experiment, take a trip as it were?
Never affected me in the slightest.
I was with my girlfriend and we dropped some acid together. You could say this now, who's going to arrest me now? And we dropped some acid together and it was really beautiful and you know, and love and making love and everything and all that kind of stuff. And I had sort of flashes of wonderful inspiration. I wrote it all down on a pad. I'd prepared that this would happen, you know, if we set on fire, write it all down. And anyway, you know, the next day I looked at it was just complete rubbish. But it didn't matter, because I don't regret any of those. I don't regret any of those things. They were great. It's great, all that. I loved all that. It was fantastic.
I'm not pointing a finger. I was just curious.
I think the songs would have, some other songs would have got done anyway. But I think it did, for certain of us, it did influence things for a while.
Absolutely. But what it did, or at least I think what it did, we did record once. I don't know if we were on acid or maybe a little smoke, I'm not sure, but we did record something that we thought, whoa, oh, great. We showed up the next day and said, play back that, let's just do it. And the producer wouldn't let us hear it, it was so bad. But what it does, I think, while you're performing, it gives you the ambition, and you hear things in your mind and your soul, and it gives you the ambition to try and get there when you're straight. I think that's where it's useful.
Yeah.
First time I met Tim Leary, he said, you're coming up to the ranch, John. It's going to be great. I said, Tim, you're a great friend. I'm actually off to Disneyland. And that's where I went.
So did Alice in Wonderland.
I went to the ranch. So did Mike and a couple of us, yeah. I was never even offered it, as a matter of fact. And I had the loveliest weekend with Tim and his family. And there was a commune that he had outside of LA. And they were all very beautiful, very pretty. The boys and the girls, they were all lovely. And it was just great. It was a lovely, lovely weekend. He was a great man, wasn't he? He was a lovely man.
Lovely man, yeah. But I had a choice. It was like Timothy Leary, Hugh Hefner. It's true. They went over to Tim's place.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Did you see Graham swimming through the grotto? I wanted to, we briefly touched upon some of the album art over some of these past sessions, but was there a conscious decision never to be photographed for an album cover and then try to top each one, and of course the big gatefold sleeves and everything? What was the decision to keep that going and not be photographed?
I think a big learning experience for us was when we did the last Beatles tour that they did in England. They did one more in America. And we saw what that mega fame did to your life. You know, and they literally took their life in their own hands if they walked out in the street. A couple of times when we were on tour with them, we were mistaken. I was mistaken once for one of them. And you get 12 little girls hysterical on you, and they can kill you. And so they had to hide all their life, all the time. And we decided there was, I don't know that we sat down and decided, but it turned out that we always backed off from that last big step of giving yourself, your personal self, over for your career. We always just, oh no, that's far enough. I think
I think we never went to be celebrities, you know, and a lot of the time we didn't even have a press agent. But we were, there is a photograph of us on the back of Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
There's photographs of us on the back of In Search of the Lost Chord. It wasn't something that we resisted, but I think the music was more important. We just didn't, what was more important than the personalities, and we weren't looking for celebrity.
And Days of Future Past.
I think it held us in good stead, actually, the fact that we did it. Yeah.
And it was a, I'm sorry, Graham.
And they did one time, they did tell us that we had to have photographs of us all. I can't even remember which album. There was one where we did all the baby photographs.
Yeah, okay. I think an octave as well they wanted us to, so we did
Yeah.
it backwards. we were walking away.
Yeah.